All right, can folks hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, let's get
Good morning,
started.
Saad.
Good morning, everyone. So today is June 2nd, 2022. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. As a reminder, this meeting is public, recorded, and posted on YouTube. So today on the agenda, we're going to go over the 125 planning. We did the initial planning session on May 12th to populate what are the items that we're going to work on for 125. Upcoming dates to be aware of. Here are the cycle began on the 23rd. And the production readiness soft freeze is going to happen on the 9th. And the enhancement freeze is going to be on the 16th of June. So this means that if you have a feature that is part of the 125 release, it should be the KEP should be approved by June 16th, and it should have production readiness sign off by the 9th. So those are the dates to be aware of. If you're working on a feature, you still have time to add a feature to the spreadsheet. If you would like, let us know, and we can help you track that. And if you have any items that you would like to discuss, feel free to add them to the bottom of the agenda, and we'll get to them after the planning session. The link to the agenda is in your calendar invite. So with that, we're going to jump over to the 125 planning spreadsheet and start getting status updates. Let me create a column here real quick. Okay, so first item that we have is delegate FS group to CSI driver instead of kubelet, including updating the end-to-end test. This is being moved to GA. Hemant, are you on the call by any chance?
Yeah, I am. But this, so we have found an owner for this. It'll be Fabio will be working on it, and we can put his name there.
Perfect. Sounds good.
And yeah.
All right, thanks, Hemant. Next item is recovering from resize failures, moving to beta from alpha.
Yeah, I'm working on a design, like slightly like changing the design and checking on the possibility that if we can restore all the way back to the original size, because the current design has a limitation that you can only restore to a value that was at least slightly greater than the actual size of the volume. We cannot go back all the way. So I'm working on that, and I'm updating the cap. It already had the PRR review from last release, but I just need to update the milestones. So I'm working on that.
Got it. And are you gonna still keep it beta?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Next item is issues related to assuming mounts, assuming volumes or mount points. Jing, are you on the call?
Yes. So it's still under review. I'll give another round. I think this and next week. It should be close to, yeah.
Sounds good.
Ready.
Next item is determine mount points without relying on proc mounts.
Yes, it's also, I think I have just last comment about arrow handling. Other than that, it's also ready. Yeah, kind of almost ready.
Sounds good. And finally, we have storage capacity tracking for pod scheduling. Is Patrick on the call?
I think this one we can probably. Huh?
It's already GA.
Yeah, this is already. We can probably mark this one as done because the external provisioner, we don't have any pending PRs from Patrick anymore. So
got it. Sounds good. And I'm assuming this was actually completed in 124.
Right.
Okay, so it was just kind of outstanding external provisioner work. Got it. Sounds good. All right, next item is CSI Ephemeral Volumes existing API, moving that to GA. We had this moved out to 125. Is Jonathan still the owner for this?
Is it also the inline CSI
Yeah.
inline?
Yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, right. So he has a PR for reconstruction and review. I think I just had a very small comment. Other than that, it looks good.
And the reconstruction PR is related to CSI Ephemeral Volumes?
Yeah, for the inline CSI inline volume reconstruction.
Got it. Cool, thank you, Jing. And the next one is local ephemeral storage resource management.
Yes.
Yep,
So this is a feature like old features beta since 110. We haven't really moved to GA. So right now I'm writing a cap to promote to GA.
awesome. Sounds good. I'll go ahead and mark this as started. And whenever you have a cap, just update this.
Okay.
All right, next up, spreading over failure domains. Is that something we are tracking for this cycle or cutting it?
No, it's still because it's still dependent on the volume group one.
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
So I think that's still
Sounds good.
crossed
So
out.
then let's jump over to volume group.
Yeah, so I updated the cap. The main difference is because I think we should support static provisioning. So basically added the second API object for like volume group now as a volume group content. The group snapshot has a group snapshot content. So we just started the discussion at the CSI implementation meeting. So we'll continue on the design in this quarter.
Cool. Thank you, Shing. Next up is CSI out of tree, moving the Iscsi driver. We were not clear if this was completed or if there was outstanding work. Does anyone know?
Sorry,
Okay.
which item is this?
This is the Iscsi CSI driver.
I have to double check. There might have been a release.
Got it. And I guess similar story with the Samba SIF CSI driver.
I have seen progress made there. I think Samba's okay.
Got it. What's the goal for both of these for this cycle? Do you know?
I think it was just to do a release.
Okay.
I believe
Sorry,
I think Samba has multiple releases. I think Iscsi, I only see one release in January. But that's probably fine. I think we can probably just mark this as complete and, just treat the rest as incremental work.
Got it. Okay. I'll go ahead and mark both of these as done for now then. Okay, next is PVC volume snapshot namespace transfer. Trying for alpha this cycle. Mustafa, Masaki, any updates?
Yes, we made SIG network involved because we will use reference policy, which is part of Gateway API. Oh, I'm talking about cross namespace provision.
Got it.
And as for transfer feature, there is no objection by implementing cross namespace provision. So we might be able to remove this and just focus on cross namespace provision.
Got it. And for provision volumes, the design, or sorry, can you repeat the status for provision volumes for number 14?
We add a SIG network involved.
Got it.
Discussion, yeah.
Okay. And target is still alpha for both of these?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you, Misaki. Next is, actually, let me mark both of these as started. CSI volume health, additional metrics moving to beta. Nick Wren was working on this. Anyone have an update?
Yeah, so oh, this is the first one, right? It's the metrics one.
Yep. metrics.
Yeah, so I updated the cap, so we're going for beta.
Cool. Thank you, Xing. And then I guess the second piece of this is the programmatic response, which is in design.
We don't really, so actually not started because initially Nick says somebody in his team will work on design, but looks like that person does not really have time to work on this in this quarter. So we probably just can just cross this out.
Okay. I guess this can also be a call out to the rest of the group if anybody's interested in picking up an item. This is an item you can help design potentially. The idea here is that so far we have been treating CSI volume health metrics as something that is human consumable. We are interested in also having some sort of programmatic automatic response to volume health to drive the volumes back to healthy state potentially. That is a more complicated design, and we've been punting on it. If you're interested in helping drive that, reach out to me, Xing, Yan, or Michelle.
I actually think rather than the goal being to drive the volume back to a healthy state, the goal should be to enable things that are running on top of the volume to stop using the volume, to
That's
sort
a
of
good
save themselves, abandon, it's like an abandoned ship kind of a signal.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So if you
but is that we do have the events, we do have metrics.
well, I think the problem is if you have like a pod or something using a volume and it's in steady state, the pod is healthy. If a volume goes bad underneath it, that pod has no idea unless you have some special logic inside of the pod doing the monitoring.
Okay.
I guess Ben's
We
point is,
do have events in the pod as well, but
I mean, a pod can access events if it wanted to, but it means you need to, write a special API to go and access Kubernetes events from within your pod, or like another, I don't know, operator or something to do that.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is just with regard to monitoring volume health, like a lot of storage devices have monitoring tools that are way better than anything Kubernetes will ever provide. And so people who are interested in finding out about health problems are probably using those. And similarly, fixing problems is usually going to require some vendor-specific, storage controller-specific action to be taken. And again, those make sense to be done at a lower layer. The thing that makes most sense to do at the Kubernetes layer is to send out a signal that would let a controller do something at the Kubernetes layer in response to it, which is most likely to stop using the volume or, begin migrating the data off the volume to another place.
Yep, that makes sense. If anyone's interested in helping driver design that, please reach out. I think it would be a nice addition. Okay, moving on. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying the like the Nick and I think there was also someone from Twitter who brought up their use case. Our team also have some use cases as well. In those cases, mostly it's to delete those volumes, so those will be your new volumes will be created. Those,
Yeah, I think we'll need to discuss
general.
exactly what the recovery strategies look like. I imagine we want probably more than one, and let the user select from multiple options. But yeah, we can discuss that.
Yeah, if your application is one such that you can withstand the loss of a volume,
Yeah.
then it's obvious to just wipe it out and start over.
All right, let's keep moving. So volume populator data source, add metric support and testing out of tree. Moving to beta for this cycle, Ben.
No, we are beta now, and we're going to stay beta for this 4.1. So no motion this release.
Okay. And any updates here, or just on track?
Well, what we're hoping for is to see more actual implementations of volume populators, and so, for example, like the creating volumes across namespaces is an example of the populator being used for something useful. So the more of those we get, the easier it will be to make the case that it should go GA. So yeah, the focus is on finding and helping more applications of volume populators get implemented.
Got it. So I guess that's a good call out for the group as well. If you are interested in writing a volume populator, reach out to Ben. Volume populator is basically something that can pre-populate a volume with data instead of, when it's created, it's completely empty. You can imagine whether it's like a GitHub source or, we have volume snapshots as data populators. You can imagine anything that kind of pre-populates data into a volume. And we want this to become a generic pattern where you can write your own data populators to populate arbitrary volumes. So hopefully we have enough examples of these that we can drive this to GA soon.
So the project that Masaki is working on, actually, he's going to use a volume populator approach.
Ah, nice.
Yes.
And maybe Ben, that can be used as one example.
Yep, that was the one I was trying to refer to. I'm sorry if it wasn't clear.
Perfect. All right, let's move on to Object Storage API, Cozy. So KEP is in review. Any new changes here?
I think we are just waiting for PRR review now. So Michelle reviewed from the API side, already gave a look good to me. So I think we're getting really close this time.
Nice. Might actually be hit alpha this time. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, next up is change block tracking. Shane, you want to give an update on this one?
Yeah, so we had a review meeting in the CSI community sync up. We got some feedback. So Fan, Ivan, and there are a few other folks. They are basically updating the CAP, and we actually discussed this again in yesterday's BP working group meeting. So yeah, so they are actively working on the CAP and working on the POC.
Cool.
Yeah, so we're trying to submit a CAP by the deadline.
Sounds good. Next item is runtime assisted mounting. Any
Hey,
update on that? Go for
yeah.
it.
I updated the cap and got an awesome review from Jan. So a couple of things. I know we were trying to kind of hit towards the alpha, but it has some potentially controversial CSI changes. If time permits, I can go over that at the end of the meeting today. Otherwise, I was curious if I know, like, can I just submit the CSI changes as PRs on the CSI API and discuss it? Because the next meeting for CSI is beyond the enhancement freeze date.
That could work, or we can try pulling in the CSI meeting date.
Okay.
Let me
Yeah,
take,
we can do one-off CSI meetings for special topics. But nothing should stop you from just pushing a PR and calling people's attention to it.
Sounds good. Cool. And if you need to meet, maybe I can make a request and go from there. Thanks.
next CSI meeting is on the 22nd. Yeah, just send out an email if you want to meet, and we can do a one-off if needed.
Good. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Deep. Next item is CSI proxy for Windows, transition to privileged containers. Mauricio, are you on the line? Does anyone have an update on this?
I think right now we haven't got time to actually work on that. Yeah.
I see. Do you want to commit for this release, or?
It's likely not.
Got it. Okay. Go ahead and scratch it from our 125 list.
Before we do that, maybe I'll confirm with Mauricio about his
Got it.
time. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I'll think of with him.
We'll check with Mauricio. All right, cool. Sounds good. Thank you, Jing. Next up is node expansion secret. Anyone have an update on that?
So this one is almost done because the PR was there last time, right, in the end of 1.24. We were trying to get an exception, didn't get it. So so now that PR is merged. So it's
PR is
code
merged.
complete. Yeah, so
Okay.
code complete. So basically, and also Humble also updated the cap. So the only thing left is doc now.
Cool. Very close to being done. Thank you, Xing. Next is SE Linux relabeling using mount options.
So I updated my API PR, it got reviewed by Michelle. And I will update the cap to include the new sections.
Cool, sounds good. Thank you, Jan. Next item is CSI core bugs and issues. We weren't entirely sure if there are any core bugs and issues that need to be fixed, but just in case, we copied the item over. Is Matt or Jawei on the line, or anybody who has a status update on core CSI migration?
I think we were supposed to move this to GA last cycle, but it didn't happen. So I think we need to update the caps. But I think I think we are pretty much like, I think there was one bug fix that was pending, but I believe it merged. I have to double check.
Got it. And since we have the move core to GA, I'm gonna scratch out the bugs and issues because that's kind of covered under the next item. Okay, then we can talk about CSI migration for individual plugins. So vSphere, what's the plan? What's going on there?
Yeah, so we will try to bring this well, it's on by default, basically still staying in beta. Yes, the last time we couldn't do it, but I think this time we should do that.
Sounds good. Next is Azure. Azure was already GA'd, if I remember correctly. So I think we can drop that one. Azure file. We'll check with Andy on status. Anyone have the latest on Azure file? Okay. And for GCE GA, plan would be to move from beta to GA. Anyone have a status update on that? I don't think Matt Wong has the status update for GCE. Michelle, do you know?
You mean Matt Carey?
Yeah, I think Matt Carey would be the right person.
I need to double check with him.
Sounds
There was one version skew issue that was caught. It was a version incompatibility between external provisioner and Kubernetes. I don't know if we added that to the known issues, Kubernetes known issues, and maybe external provisioner known issues, but we should call that out.
And that was specific to GCE?
Yes.
Got it. All right, thanks, Michelle. Next is AWS Windows Support GA. And I think status is probably the same. Check with Matt Wong. Anyone have an update on that one? Okay. Then we have Ceph RBD and Ceph FS. Anyone have an update on that? All right, we'll skip over it. Next up is Portworx Beta. Anyone have an update on Portworx? I think we don't have an owner for this for a while, so I'm going to mark that as no owner.
Actually, Tara, the name that the name is that I think she should still be the owner.
Got it.
I talked to her at the end of 1.24. I can check with her for 1.25. So at that time, I know she is interested to move forward in 1.25.
Sounds good. Thank you, Xing. All right, next up is always honor reclaim policy. This is staying in alpha. Anyone have an update?
Yeah, it's going to be staying alpha. So we'll try next.
Cool.
Next release.
Then you have control volume mode conversion between source and target PVC.
This one also staying in alpha. I checked with Ronak, so but we can work on adding tests and things like that. Yeah, but staying alpha.
Okay.
Xing, what is the maximum number of releases something can be in alpha?
I don't think there's anything as a maximum number of. You can probably always. It's only if you stay in beta there's something, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't want us to fall into that trap of staying in alpha too long. But if it's only beta.
Yeah, it's only beta. Because otherwise, I mean, any feature, because right, any feature you go alpha, you have to move to beta after 3, and then you have to. If that's the case, then things probably will be moving too quickly. Right? Yeah, so it's only for beta. Yeah.
Cool. Next we have secret protection, prevent deletion while in use. Depends on the in-use kept below. Masaki, you want to give a status on both of these? So I
Yes.
think
So secret protection stay design and in-use protection we are targeting to alpha.
sorry, could you repeat that last part?
Alpha.
Alpha.
Hey, Masaki, so because this is owned by API Machinery,
Yeah.
so you talked to them, right? I just want to make sure that's added in that. There is a enhancement tracking spreadsheet, but I think it should be added by the owning SIG.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I need to talk with SIG API Machinery
Okay.
for that. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Misaki. So the rest of these are all co-owned. They're not just SIG storage. So next item is non-graceful node shutdown. Any updates? Looks like it was
Right. So
done.
we are, yeah, so it's done. Yeah, it's in alpha. So we are moving to beta. So I updated the cap.
Cool. Thank you. I'm going to mark that as started. Then we have SIG apps address issue PVC created by stateful set will not be auto removed. And we'll check with Matt on whether to go beta or not. Anyone have an update on that one? Okay, I'm going to mark that as no update for now. Then we have volume expansion for stateful sets. Lots of corner cases. We'll check with Shalini to see if she will work on this. Anyone able to confirm?
I have not got a response from her.
Okay. All right, then let's move on to better default storage class. Roman.
Oh, well,
Or
I'm
John.
here on his behalf.
Okay.
So I sent a document with a couple of ideas, and we kind of agreed that we should change the existing behavior, basically breaking it. But Michel asked explicitly for a feature gate for that. So that means we need to write a cap. I just created issue, and cap will follow shortly. I hope we can catch the deadline for RTT release readiness.
Got it.
Are we still considering it a bug, and it's just a bug that we're gonna feature gate the fix for, or?
Well, since we are writing a cap, it's technically a feature.
Yeah, so this is similar to the always owner reclaim policy, right? That's also looks like a bug, but because we are trying to prevent breaking some existing use cases, so we added a feature gate for that, right? So it's kind of similar case. It's a small feature. Yeah.
Yeah, if we're adding a feature gate, effectively it's a feature. All right, moving on to last item here, handle per volume CSI driver capabilities. Ben.
Oh, so I didn't realize this was on the spreadsheet. Yeah, I was just going to announce that we're having a meeting to gather the requirements for this next Tuesday. It's on the CSI or the SIG storage calendar. It's at 10 a.m. Pacific, I think. And the goal of that meeting, it's spelled out in the document that's linked in the section below. And we're just looking to sort of get our arms around all of the different problems people have, so that when we design a solution, it doesn't leave anyone out, hopefully. I have my specific problem I want to solve, and I know that other people have theirs. So we want to get them all written down so we can consider everything together.
Nice, sounds good. All right, thanks, Ben. And I think there was one more item that needed to be added. Designs, Peter, stateful set slices. I think the intention is this should be co-owned by SIG apps. Peter, should I add this to the list?
Yeah, I think the earliest this would be is 1.26, so not for 1.25. But
Okay, so I'll leave it off the list. We'll switch back, and then I think you are next on the agenda. So go for it. Do you want to share your screen or?
sure, yeah. I also posted a link to a doc in the chat. Let me present. I don't think I have access to actually share in this meeting. Just seeing sharing.
Yeah, hang on. Let me make you a co-host. Sheng, I don't seem to have permission to make him co-host. Can you?
Oh, let me try. Okay. Peter, can you try now?
Oh, there we go. Thanks.
Peter, are you on mute?
I can't hear anything.
Yeah, we can't hear a thing.
Maybe he has the problem that Sean Chen has, where he can't share and talk at the same time.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Because Sean
looks
Chen
like that's the
always
issue.
has that problem. Every time he
Right.
shares, he loses audio. Very
Can you hear me
strange.
now?
Okay, then I can try sharing the screen for you, and you can talk through
Okay.
it. Hang
Great.
on.
I just want to confirm people can hear me okay right now.
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. Great. Yeah, so if you can just scroll down to the summary motivation section. So the goal behind this is being able to split up a stateful set. So being able to take, say, the upper end of a stateful set and move it across a namespace or a cluster. And the way that stateful sets are initialized, they start from ordinal 0. And there's no control to be able to start them from a different ordinal. So if we're thinking about, say, scaling down a stateful set on one cluster and scaling up a stateful set in another cluster, there's no way to kind of have the higher ordinal pods start first and maintain the at most one semantics in a world where, say, this stateful set is being migrated. So the proposal here is to add some control so that the user could actually specify an ordinal and have more control over a stateful set being brought up in a different namespace or a cluster. So I've kind of gone over this user story here. And this is kind of an example. Say we're taking a stateful set of replica 5 and we're migrating it. one could imagine scaling down a stateful set in the first namespace from 5 to 3, and then bringing up this another stateful set with replica 2. The challenge being that if stateful set implementation is it is today, the pods in the second namespace would be labeled 0 and 1. What we really want is having them labeled 3 and 4 in order to have that continuity of pod ordinals. So that's kind of the high level proposal here, and I can go into a bit more specifics as well. So I think the main things to call out about the caveats and the kind of the non-goals is obviously in order to have the stateful set supported across namespaces or clusters, there needs to be a lot of other mechanics involved, like networking, orchestrating storage, orchestrating the actual movement of the stateful sets, and those aren't goals and they're not scoped in this KEP. Just the building block of having this control over the ordinals in a stateful set.
Does it grow down from the top, or do you specify them one at a time, or what kind of control do you get?
Yeah, so the API that I proposed is having a start ordinal. So implicitly, stateful set starts at 0 today. Having the field called replica start ordinal would enable a user to kind of scale a stateful set up from the top, almost like a reverse ordering. But being able to manipulate both of those parameters, replicas and replica start ordinal, could enable a user to create an arbitrary slice of a stateful set.
But like in the example you shared, where you have 5 on one side and you want to move 2 of them, if later you want to move the third one, like it's going to be number 2, but you're started at number 3 and you're going up on the second cluster, right? So like.
Right. So yeah, modifying both parameters, like if you did want to scale nginx 2 to the second namespace, you could, increase replicas to 3 and decrease replica start ordinal to 2 in the same.
Oh, okay. So you can just change the start ordinal and then it can figure it out. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And like an alternate idea is, having like a reverse ordering Boolean that would kind of, start the number of replicas from the highest ordinal instead of the lowest. So there's kind of different ways to achieve the same mechanism that, we could have some discussions and potentially land on a different API.
But as long as you can atomically both scale it up and change the start ordinal at the same time, then you can go from like 2 starting at 3 to 3 starting at 2, so that you don't lose either of the ones you've got when you add the third one.
Exactly. Yeah. I think there is some risk of the user shooting themselves in the foot with, having 2 fields that you have to update in tandem.
So Peter, I guess your goal here is to get feedback. Anyone? How do folks on the call feel about this?
I mean, from a storage perspective, I don't see any issues. I think whoever owns stateful sets in general might have some concerns about corner cases, but I can't think of any.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. One thing that as we were going through the 1.25 list, the feature for volume snapshot creation, or I guess PVC creation across namespaces, was something I was thinking about in terms of a feature that could play well with this for migration across namespaces. So I guess the motivation for namespaces was, say if the user either is moving from, say, a shared namespace to an isolated namespace, or is renaming namespaces, being able to use that feature of, scaling down a stateful set, taking a snapshot of the underlying PVC, and then recreating that PVC in a new namespace, and then scaling up the stateful set to consume that just created PVC.
And do you want to target, you said an alpha in 126, not 125?
Correct. Yeah, I think this is too premature to target
Got it.
125.
Okay. Okay, so I think no objections from the SIG storage side. Your next step should probably be to reach out to SIG apps and try and get some feedback from them. And if they're good with it, then create a KEP and should be good to go.
So in general, like about transfer across namespace, do we have the security, like a permission type of concern? I remember for like a snapshot feature, we do have some discussion.
Yeah, I think whatever is, I think this proposal here is not actually doing, the orchestration to move across namespaces, right? But whatever does do that orchestration to actually do the move across namespaces needs to, consider all the security implications of that.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
And I believe for like the snapshot transfer, I think thinking about the security parts of it is a big part of that proposal.
You want to take a look at that reference policy that the provision across namespace cap is trying to use? I'm not sure if you can leverage that one as well.
Can you say that again, Shing?
That is the reference policy. That's actually from SIG networking. They have a V1 Alpha 2 CRD for that. It's part of the gateway API.
Yeah, we looked at that when we were designing Cozy to see if we could use it for Cozy cross namespace sharing, and it had some promise, but it was also pretty brand new and not fully baked. Given that it's V1 Alpha 2, you can make your own judgment about how baked it is.
Yeah, that's why we are. Yeah.
It would be nice if there was a more core object that directly facilitated cross namespace activities that was owned by like SIG API, but we don't have that yet.
Okay, so I think next steps for you, Peter, are go talk to the apps since they own stateful set.
Okay.
And
Thanks, everyone.
sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. And if there's no other comments on this, we'll move on to the next item. We got 8 minutes left. Deep, you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, sure. Can I share my screen real quick?
Yep, go for it.
Thanks.
Shing, you want to make him co-host?
Yeah, okay, let me.
Hopefully he doesn't lose audio. I
Okay,
don't know why that happens.
try.
All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it and can hear you still.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is a quick update of like where we are with the runtime assisted mounting KEP, and just wanted to get some very high level feedback. So far, Jan has taken a look and provided a lot of great feedback, but just want to get some overall feedback from others as well. So a quick state of where we are today, which is the state is basically like file system mounts in Kubernetes is completely controlled by CSI plugins. And so this is like a pretty complicated diagram, but on the right, you basically have the run C model where, of course, a CSI plugin does everything. On the left, you have the a slightly more complicated model involving a micro VM such as Kata, which uses a file system called Vertio FS to basically project host file systems into like a micro VM guest. And this has several disadvantages from a security as well as performance standpoint that are detailed in the KEP. And one of the main reasons why we have seen like various cloud vendors like Alibaba and others have started kind of doing a more kind of like a direct assignment where things move to sort of a model where instead of Vertio FS, you have the block device being projected from the host directly to the runtime environment, which would be a VM in case of Kata. So in previous cycles, what we tried was kind of trying to come up with a model where this delegation of file system mounts from the CSI control model today to the runtime is kind of done in a CSI plugin or a runtime agnostic mode. That is, the CSI plugin does not have to be specifically aware of what is the runtime on the other side. We iterated on that with SIG node in the last cycle, and we tried to come up with like this new API set called Crust, like container runtime and storage, which would sort of mimic and reflect a lot of the CSI APIs. But basically the overall feedback was there was an interest in kind of coming up with this new API set that allows a kubelet to directly talk to something like a non-CRI runtime like Kata. And so like the new proposal I came up with that is currently reflected in the KEP is sort of a model where the CSI plugin is very much aware of the runtime on the other side. And this model is sort of equivalent to, like at a very high level, it's just like CSI node plugins today have to be aware of the operating system they're running on, like Windows versus Linux. If they decide to, a CSI plugin may also offer to basically hand off or delegate file system mounted management operations to a runtime like Kata. And essentially in the Kata community, what we came up with is like a very well-defined protocol or a strategy, as we're calling it in the KEP, which basically requires a CSI plugin to populate a metadata file with like the underlying block device name, the file system type, mount options, as well as like FS group and FS group change policy for doing stuff after the mount has happened. And basically in response to like CRI API calls, Kata runtime just analyzes this metadata file and uses it to mount the file system on the specified device and then apply FS group based on the FS group change policy. But the main disadvantages with this model, without any changes in CSI or kubelet or anything else, is that it requires like pod lookup through the API server from the CSI plugin to obtain FS group and FS group change policy details. And it does not handle subpaths properly because of the security related bind mounting that happens around subpath in the host. So basically the KEP tries to address these. And so essentially what it tries to do is generalize the protocol between the CSI plugin and the container runtime through basically a new field called FS deferral strategy. So at a very high level, this can be thought of as a read-only field today that's used by a pod to specify how exactly it wants to mount a PVC. So similarly, the FS deferral strategy, it's a free-form field as it exists in the KEP today, sort of like FS types. It can be any value. It's not a canonical value or enumeration. And just to start off, we're proposing like maybe it can be just set to Kata. And that essentially means that the CSI plugin, if it can support that, will basically choose to opt into that Kata strategy and populate the metadata files and stuff exactly as Kata proposes. So it's a direct handshake between the CSI plugin and the runtime, as opposed to the CSI plugin staying runtime agnostic. And in order to surface all this, we are proposing a couple of new capabilities, the FS default strategy field in the CSI node API calls, which essentially reflects the FS default strategy in the pod spec. And finally, the ability to send down the FS group and the change policy details as well, so that a CSI plugin doesn't have to do the API server lookup. Yeah, so this is kind of like the gist of it. Would love some feedback from more members of the community if possible. And especially if like you are involved with like another, say, micro VM type runtime, like maybe Firecracker or gvisor, that might like, you know, benefit from a model like this. I would love to hear especially some feedback from that direction on whether this helps or not. So that's kind of all I had. So the KEP is there. The exact CSI proposals is something I'm gonna set up a PR for, and then basically iterate there. Yeah, would love additional
Deep,
feedback.
this sounds really, it sounds like a good approach. It feels promising to me. I look forward to seeing the specific changes required on the CSI side, because initially it was looking like it was going to be huge, and now it sounds like it'll be quite small, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, the main change was getting like the runtime out of the picture, but it does require like this specific field in the pod spec. And Ian brought up some great points around like how well we can set that field and how accurately we can set that either at admission time or later. So we'll have to figure out some of those details as well.
I think it's still going to be pretty big. And well, one thing I especially don't like is like the container runtime or the micro VM. It's a string. So now it will require all the CSI driver vendors to look what VM runtimes are there and write a code for each of them. And I'm not sure how manageable is that.
Yeah,
I had some
oh, go ahead.
I had some thoughts. I don't know if we want to have like a discussion here. Oh, I guess we're out of time. But I had some thoughts on maybe potential ways we can avoid making CSI changes. I'll discuss with you offline.
Okay, great. I can also set up some meeting like maybe next week and send up a doodle for it and go from there. But yeah, would love feedback. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, Deep, for the presentation. And yeah, let's carry the discussion on offline. There were a number of other items on the agenda today we didn't get to, so I'm just going to mark those as ran out of time. And we'll go ahead and move those to the next meeting. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and we'll see you next time in 2 weeks. Take care.
Thanks.